Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Now, US President Joe Biden welcomes British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to Washington to discuss whether to allow Kiev to use long-range missiles against Russia. Russia's head of Security Council Sergei Shoigu visits North Korea and meets its leader Kim Jong-un weeks after the Kremlin signed a defense pact with Pyongyang. Supporters and families of hostages still in Hamas captivity in Gaza block a key bridge in central Tel Aviv. They want the Netanyahu government to do more to secure a deal to bring the hostages back home. And 2 German Navy ships sail through the sensitive Taiwan Strait, the first such transit in 2 decades, and at a time when tensions between Taipei and Beijing are at an all-time high. And China raises its retirement age to 58 for women and 63 for men. The decision is a first since the 1950s as the country faces an aging population and a falling pension budget. Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Our focus is on Sudan. As the civil war between the rival generals continues to intensify, the United Nations Security Council has extended an arms embargo on the warring parties in Sudan's Darfur region. The resolution was adopted unanimously by the 15-member council on Wednesday. In 2023, the permanent members, like China and Russia, abstained the last time the embargo was renewed, but this time they voted in favor. The resolution renews the sanctions regime in place in Darfur since 2004 and now extends it until September the 12th, 2025. Now, these sanctions are aimed solely at Sudan's Darfur region and do not apply to the whole country. They will restrict the movement of arms into the region, where the fighting has particularly intensified in recent months. It will sanction individuals and entities contributing to or complicit in destabilizing activities in Sudan. Such an embargo was first put into place in 2004 during the genocide carried out by Arab Janjaweed fighters against the non-Arab ethnic groups in Darfur. Janjaweed fighters make up elements of today's Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. It is the paramilitary group fighting Sudan's armed forces since April last year. The RSF has captured most of Darfur. In a battle that has been ongoing since May over North Darfur's capital of Al Fasher, which is the only Darfuri region capital not to have fallen to the RSF.
The United States thanks Council members for their constructive engagement in renewing the Sudan sanctions regime for 12 more months. Right now, the people of Darfur continue to live in danger, in desperation, in despair. Every day, they are faced with intensified fighting and restrictions on humanitarian aid, persistent human rights violations, and mass displacement. This adoption sends an important signal to them that the international community remains focused on their plight and is committed to advancing peace and security in Sudan and the region.
Sudan's envoy has welcomed the extension, but he urged the Council to go further and sanction the entire rapid support forces. Sudan's envoy also accused the United Arab Emirates of backing the RSF and profiting from the nation's natural resources. Sudan's military has repeatedly accused the UAE of supplying the RSF with arms and ammunition smuggled in through neighboring Chad. A report by the United Nations earlier this year also said that there was substance to these reports. However, the UAE has strongly denied the accusations, calling them baseless. Last month, Sudan's army also backed out from the US-led peace talks in Geneva because the UAE was invited to participate. Without the army's participation, the prospects of a ceasefire have dimmed in Sudan. Meanwhile, the human rights group have called for sanctions on the whole of Sudan. They have called the embargo renewal on Darfur a missed opportunity by the Council to extend the embargo on the whole nation. Sudan is facing a massive humanitarian crisis as a result of the 17-month-long war. Thousands have been killed and more than 10 million people have been displaced. The United Nations says 26 million people are in crisis levels of hunger. There are also reports of sexual violence and other human rights violations. Now, for more on this, we have with us Moses Crispus Okello, a senior researcher under the Horn of Africa Security Program at the Institute for Security Studies. He is joining us live from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Alison.
Now, what are the primary reasons behind the United Nations Security Council's unanimous decision to extend the arms embargo on Sudan for another year?
Thank you once again, Alison. Indeed, on the 11th of September, the United Nations Security Council decided to roll over the sanctions regime for Sudan, affecting individuals and entities that are involved in arming the different factions in Sudan. I think that rollover is an acknowledgement that the situation in Sudan is still dire. There's lots of violations going on, and something needs to be done to end the conflict, including first and foremost by stopping the flow of the arms that are fueling this war. Indeed, this decision also comes on the back of yet another UN investigation. It comes on the back of a report of the UN panel of experts, which found that there were egregious human rights violations committed in Darfur, and most of those violations are committed by the arms. So there are various reasons why the Council decided to roll over the sanctions, but most importantly, it's an acknowledgement that there is some need to do something slightly differently.
Yes. And Moses, in your view, how effective has the arms embargo been in curbing the flow of weapons into Sudan, particularly in the Darfur region? And what challenges still remain?
I'm afraid, Alison, the geography of Sudan is not one that is amenable to effective arms embargoes. Sudan sits smack in the middle of a gun smuggling corridor that stretches from Mogadishu to West Africa on the one hand, and on the other from Libya to South Sudan, both of which are countries that are awash with especially light weapons. So geographically, the position of Sudan does not lend itself to this kind of mechanisms of controlling arms flow. And that's partly the reason why the different fighting groups in Sudan have been able to access weapons, from Libya, from Chad, from Sudan, and even from their international backers. So in short, this embargo is important, but it's not nearly enough to stem the flow of weapons. And this is a challenge that the region as a whole and the international community has to continue grappling with.
Yes. And on that, how do the international actors, including the neighboring countries, as you've mentioned there, and major powers, influence the enforcement and the effectiveness of the arms embargo?
Unfortunately, again, this is the two different angles to this. On the one hand, the major powers, or at least some actors among the major powers, are the ones involved in selling arms clandestinely to the different factions in Sudan, or at least if they are not, they are condoning such sales by consorting with some entities, for instance, in the United Arab Emirates, in Iran, that are involved in selling these arms. So there's an extent to which the international community, or at least countries in the international community, are complicit in arming Sudan. On the other hand, the borders of the countries that border Sudan are so porous, and the countries that border Sudan are incapable of managing their borders, that it's almost impossible to stem the movement of arms back and forth. So unfortunately, there's very little that the countries and the international community can do to stem these arms. But that doesn't mean that it's not an important thing to do. Right.
Moses, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for your valued analysis and insights on the latest out of Sudan.
Thanks for having me, Alison.
From Sudan, we move to Somalia, which is reportedly becoming a center for the Islamic State terror group in Africa. The International Crisis Group says Islamic State in Somalia, an African affiliate of the terror group once known as ISIS, has become an important financial influence for terrorism. The Islamic State Somalia is also reportedly financing terror operations in other African countries. Now, the report also claims that the leader of the branch might become the new overall head of the terrorist group. Though al-Qaeda-linked al-Shabaab is the main Islamic terrorist group in Somalia, which has nearly 10,000 members in the southern part of the country and remains active on the battlefield, researchers say the IS Somalia is rapidly building relations with other IS branches. Now, the report adds that IS Somalia is playing a bigger role outside Somalia than al-Shabaab and is carving out a role for itself within the wider Islamic State network. The International Crisis Group report says the Islamic State restructured its African operations in 2020 and placed affiliates from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Mozambique under the watch of Islamic State headquarters in Somalia's Puntland region. Now, IS Somalia is reported to have between 100 and 400 fighters stationed in northern Somalia, and reports say about half of the fighters are believed to be foreigners. Earlier this year, the Puntland authorities arrested 6 Islamic State fighters who were Moroccans. Analysts say that Somalia's weak central government, instability and armed conflicts have enabled the country to be the financial hub of the Islamic State. The terrorist group has been extremely active and has waged several attacks against security forces and business centers. It also carries out extortion rackets to support its fighters and terror activities. In May this year, the United States carried out airstrikes in Somalia, targeting Islamic State leader Abdul Qadir Mumin. However, he is said to have survived the attack. Now, if Mumin becomes the overall head of the Islamic State, his rise would also signal the terror group's growing influence in Africa. Shifting focus to Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has dissolved the Senegalese parliament and has called for a snap election. In a televised address, the Senegalese president said new elections will take place on the 17th of November. He urged the voters to give his party a mandate so that he could carry out the reforms he promised.
After consulting the Constitutional Council on the correct date, the Prime Minister and the President of the National Assembly on the opportunity, I dissolve the National Assembly. The date of the legislative elections is thus set for Sunday, November 17th, 2024. In any case, the government guarantees the proper organization of these elections and the free and democratic expression of the choice of the people. And may the best man win.
Now, the announcement of a snap election comes just 6 months after Faye became Africa's youngest elected leader. The 44-year-old replaced Macky Sall, the ex-president who ruled Senegal for 12 years. Sall is now the leader of the opposition. Faye replaced him less than 2 weeks after he was released from prison. Now, Faye gained widespread popularity amid frustration among Senegal's youth with the way the country was governed. He promised to fight corruption and to bring in widespread reforms to improve the living standards of citizens. He was elected with 54% of the votes. But 6 months later, these pledges have yet to materialize. Faye and his Prime Minister, Ousmane Sonko, have blamed the country's parliament for the failure. Despite Faye winning the most votes, his party does not hold a majority in the parliament, and this, Faye says, has blocked his party from executing the promised reforms. Now, political tensions in Senegal have escalated recently after opposition lawmakers cancelled a budget debate and threatened to table a motion to censure the government. Last week, Senegal's Prime Minister had announced that the president would dissolve the parliament in response. Senegal's opposition has condemned the dissolution, saying it is aimed at avoiding the submission of a motion to censure. Opposition leaders have accused Faye and Prime Minister Sonko of manipulating institutions to serve their own political interests. Analysts say that Faye's political party is likely to secure a majority in the snap election, given his popularity and the victory margin. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. Our story today is from Egypt. An initiative called the Shakala is empowering women through belly dancing, creating a safe, inclusive space where they can freely express themselves. With no restrictions based on body type, size, or appearance, the Shakla forest empowerments sisterhood and self-expression, breaking societal norms through the art of belly dance. Our last story gets you all the details.
Dancing has long been woven into the fabric of Egyptian culture, dating back to ancient times. Today, it continues to hold a significant place, but with a modern twist. Enter Shakla, an Egyptian initiative with a mission to empower women through the art of belly dancing. Founded by May Amer, this group isn't about shaking hips to a rhythm, it's about creating a safe, accepting space where women can express themselves freely without judgment.
Every woman who joins Shakla says that she is dedicating this time for herself. I am here because I want to dance, because I want to do the thing that I love, so that I can move once again in the way that I love, among women who will tell me that I am beautiful, for a moment of acceptance with no one telling me, you must lose or gain weight, your hair should be longer, or that wrinkles started to show under your eyes. We don't have this space. We meet, have fun, and dance.
Shakla is a community built around traditional belly dance, where women come together not just to learn the steps, but to reclaim their bodies and break free from societal expectations. It's an oasis of acceptance, offering a space for women to pursue their passion and be exactly who they want to be, unapologetically.
Shakla is a space in between dancing as a hobby and professionally. We cannot bear the threats that belly dancers face, and at the same time we want to offer a practice space for other women. Given the pressure of work, because even in the past, these simple celebrations that used to take place among our families, where the girls would gather every Thursday or Friday and dance together in the bedroom, this no longer happens. So, we want to bring this space back again.
What started as a small circle of just 8 women has grown to a thriving group of 36, with participants ranging from 18 to 48 years old.
This is a very comfortable and supportive environment. It pushes the Egyptian woman forward so that she doesn't focus on who is telling her that dancing is improper or that your body shape is not suitable.
The beauty of Shakla lies in its inclusivity. There are no restrictions, no requirements based on body type, skin color, size or weight. In this group, every woman's body is celebrated for its uniqueness, and behind the closed doors of the studio, they exercise their right to dance without inhibition. The group functions through a social media platform where interested women sign up for a 3-month workshop. After completing the course, they perform in an exclusive showcase, an intimate private event where they can invite only female friends and family members. This private setting ensures they feel completely at ease, showing off the skills they have honed without the pressure of a public audience. Over the course of the workshop, something magical happens. Bonds are formed, friendships are built, and a community is born. These women often continue to meet after the workshop, pooling their resources to rent spaces where they can continue practicing and perfecting their belly dancing. They also share costumes and accessories for performances and events, hence creating a tight-knit support system that transcends the dance floor. In essence, Shakla is about far more than just dance. It's about empowerment, sisterhood, and reclaiming joy in a world that often tries to limit women's freedom of expression. What started as a modest initiative has blossomed into a movement that's redefining what it means to dance, not just with your body, but with your soul.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and goodbye.